For over 60 years, the colonial matrix has operated perfectly. Not a technological matrix like in the movies, but a much more subtle psychological matrix. It operates on a simple yet powerful principle, convincing African nations that they cannot be self-sufficient, that they need aid to survive, that they must export raw materials and import finished goods at high prices, that their brightest minds must emigrate to find opportunities, that their traditional cultures are backward and need to be replaced by Western models. This matrix is maintained not by force, but by consensus. When a people believe they cannot do something, they will never try. When leaders believe their country depends on aid, they will build entire policies around pleasing donors. When intellectuals believe success can only be achieved abroad, they will leave their homeland. The matrix perpetuates itself by creating self-fulfilling prophecies. In Burkina Faso, this matrix has operated like clockwork. The country depended on food imports despite having a suitable climate and land for agriculture. The government depended on foreign aid for development projects. Young people dreamed of migrating to Europe. Economic policies were designed to serve the interests of foreign investors rather than local people. Everything operated according to the script the matrix had written. But every system has a weakness, and the weakness of the colonial matrix is its underestimation of the power of human consciousness. They can control infrastructure, finance, even policy, but they cannot control the moment when an individual decides not to believe in the limitations the system imposes. Ibrahim Traoré is that individual, and when he awoke an entire nation. Ibrahim Traoré is not just a political leader. He is an architect of consciousness, a philosopher in action. To understand the revolution he is leading, we must understand the philosophy at the core of his thinking. This philosophy can be summarized in one sentence. Every people has within themselves everything necessary to thrive. It sounds simple, but this is a revolutionary statement in the current world. This philosophy is not narrow nationalism or isolationism. It is a profound understanding of the nature of true power. True power comes not from depending on others, but from developing one's own capabilities. Not from copying others' models, but from finding a path suited to one's own conditions and culture. Not from abandoning tradition, but from integrating ancient wisdom with modern technology. Ibrahim Traoré has applied this philosophy systematically. The first step is to change the story the people of Burkina Faso tell about themselves. Instead of, "we are poor and need help," the new story is, "we have the resources and capabilities to be self-reliant." Instead of, "we must accept the role of raw material producer," the new story is, "we can process and add value to our products." Instead of, "young people must go abroad to find opportunities," the new story is, "we can create opportunities right here at home." But changing the story is just the beginning. The next step is to change the institutions to reflect the new story. Ministries are restructured to focus on supporting production instead of coordinating aid. Budgets are reallocated to prioritize productive infrastructure instead of prestige projects. Success indicators are changed from donor satisfaction to self-reliance indicators. Decision-making processes are adjusted to prioritize long-term sustainability over short-term gains. Most importantly, Ibrahim Traoré has initiated a revolution in economic policy. Instead of accepting the role of raw material exporter, Burkina Faso has begun to develop processing industries to add value to products. Instead of relying on food imports, the country focuses on achieving food security. Instead of competing to attract foreign investment by lowering taxes and wages, Burkina Faso focuses on building local capacity and creating local value chains. But a revolution is never just about one person. It is about the moment when one person's consciousness spreads and becomes the consciousness of many. In Burkina Faso, this spread happened with incredible speed and scale. Initially, there was skepticism. People were too accustomed to empty promises from politicians. They didn't believe that things could truly change. But when they saw concrete actions, when they saw actual results, skepticism began to turn into belief. In agriculture, farmers began experimenting with traditional crop varieties they had abandoned. They formed local agricultural cooperatives to share knowledge and resources. Knowledge-sharing networks emerged organically, with seasoned farmers guiding newcomers. Innovation and adaptation occurred at the grassroots level, with creative solutions developed to fit specific local conditions. In education, teachers began integrating local knowledge into the curriculum. Students developed pride in their local culture and capabilities. New educational priorities emerged. Practical skills combined with cultural identity. The brain drain phenomenon began to slow as opportunities emerged locally. Young people started seeing a future at home instead of abroad. In the economy, entrepreneurs began seeking local solutions instead of solely relying on foreign partners. Investment shifted from foreign partnerships to developing local capacity. New business models emerged based on creating local value. Economic nationalism developed, but without hostility towards foreigners. But a true revolution doesn't only happen in people's hearts. It also needs to be institutionalized to ensure sustainability. Ibrahim Traoré understood that sustainable change requires institutional support. Ministries are restructured to serve self-reliance goals. Budgets are reallocated to prioritize productive infrastructure. Success metrics are changed to reflect new objectives. Decision-making processes are adjusted to prioritize long-term sustainability. Regarding economic policy, Burkina Faso implemented an import substitution strategy systematically and practically. Instead of trying to replace everything at once, the country focused on areas where they had a comparative advantage and the ability to develop in a short time. Support for local industries and value-added processing was prioritized. The financial system was designed to serve local production instead of just facilitating international trade. Regarding cultural policy, there was official recognition of traditional knowledge systems. Local languages were integrated into official communication. Cultural events celebrating self-reliance and innovation were regularly held. Media policy was adjusted to promote positive narratives about Africa and African capabilities. A true revolution respects no borders. Ibrahim Traoré's ideas and Burkina Faso's success began to reverberate throughout Africa and beyond. Leaders from other African nations began studying this model. Youth movements across Africa adopted similar philosophies. Regional cooperation began to be based on mutual strengths rather than shared weaknesses. A Pan-African consciousness revived with practical applications. Globally, attention is increasing. International development organizations are forced to re-examine their approaches. Academic institutions are studying this phenomenon. Media began to shift from skepticism to curiosity, even admiration. Global South nations are recognizing this alternative development path. Perhaps most importantly, Ibrahim Traoré contributed to an intellectual revolution. He helped develop new development theories based on endogenous capabilities instead of dependence. He challenged neo-colonial assumptions about Africa's potential. He demonstrated an alternative path to modernization. He provided empirical proof of the concept of self-reliant development. But true revolution is measured by the transformation it creates. And the transformation happening in Burkina Faso is profound and comprehensive. At the individual level, psychological transformation is occurring. From dependency to agency. Previously, people thought, We need someone to help. Now they think, we can solve this problem. From scarcity mindset to abundance mindset. Previously, not enough resources to do anything. Now, we have everything we need, just need to organize it properly. From individualistic mindset to collective mindset. Previously, I must look out for myself. Now, we succeed or fail together. Personal stories of this transformation are moving. Amadou, a 45-year-old farmer, shared, "Before, I only planted enough to eat day by day. Now I plant to feed the whole community and even export. The difference is not the land or the seeds, but the mindset. I realized I can be a producer, not just a survivor." Fatou, a 38-year-old teacher, said, "My students used to dream of escaping Burkina Faso. Now they dream of building it. They see possibilities instead of limitations. That's all education needs to do, show people what's possible." Ousmane, a 29-year-old entrepreneur, shared, "I once thought that to succeed I needed foreign partners, foreign investment. Now I realize that true success comes from building something that the community owns and controls. Profit is not just money, but dignity." At the societal level, systemic changes are occurring. Local production networks are linking up. Spontaneous innovation clusters emerge focusing on solutions. Local currency circulates longer, creating a multiplier effect. The focus shifts to value creation instead of just resource extraction. Social structures are also changing. Community organizations become stronger and more effective. Intergenerational knowledge transfer increases. Elders share wisdom, youth share energy. Gender dynamics shift with women taking leadership roles in new economic activities. Youth actively participate, seeing a future at home instead of abroad. A cultural renaissance is underway. Local languages gain prestige and practical use. Traditional knowledge is validated and modernized. New artistic expressions emerge celebrating self-reliance. Songs, stories, artworks. Spiritual innovation occurs through connecting cultural identity with economic success. Institutions are also evolving. Government becomes more responsive to citizens. Education becomes more relevant to teaching skills needed for local development. Healthcare innovation occurs through integrating traditional medicine with modern healthcare. Legal frameworks support local enterprise and innovation. At the national level, the transformation is comprehensive. Economic indicators show clear progress. Food security shifts from import dependency to export capability. Jobs are created in productive sectors. The balance of trade improves with reduced imports and increased value-added exports. Financial independence increases with reduced reliance on aid and foreign loans. Social indicators also improve. Educational outcomes focus on relevant skills and cultural pride. Health indicators improve through better nutrition and access to health care. Social cohesion strengthens with a stronger sense of unity and national purpose. Migration patterns change. Youth stay, diaspora return. In the international arena, Burkina Faso's standing is changing. The country becomes a regional leader with other nations studying the Burkina Faso model. Global recognition increases for successful self-reliant development. Partnership terms are negotiated from a position of strength rather than weakness. Soft power increases with growing cultural and intellectual influence. Most importantly are the immeasurable transformations. National belief in collective capability, future orientation with planning for generations instead of just surviving day to day, creative energy with innovation and experimentation at all levels, moral authority in standing for principles of dignity and self-determination. But this transformation is not only significant for Burkina Faso. A true revolution is never confined to borders. Ideas tend to spread. especially when those ideas are supported by concrete results. The Burkina Faso revolution is creating ripples across the globe. An African Renaissance is underway, a continent-wide awakening with other African leaders questioning dependency models. Youth movements across Africa drawing inspiration from self-reliance. Economic integration with African nations trading more with each other. Cultural pride with a new appreciation for African knowledge systems. Global South inspiration is spreading. Proof that self-reliant development is possible. South-South cooperation with new partnerships based on mutual respect. Knowledge sharing with traditional solutions gaining global recognition. Alternative political models to Western-imposed governance structures. An academic revolution is underway. New development theories based on endogenous capabilities. Research priorities focusing on local knowledge and solutions. Education curricula including African success stories in research. Publishing with African perspectives gaining global platforms. Media transformation is also happening. A shift in narrative from Africa as a problem to Africa as a source of solutions. Documentary interest with filmmakers capturing the transformation. Social media with African voices controlling their own narrative. Cultural products, music, literature, art, celebrating self-reliance. Looking ahead, the generational impact of this revolution will be profound. Children growing up in Burkina Faso today will have a completely different worldview than their parents. Educational foundations teaching children they are creators, not just consumers. Practical skill development for solving local problems. Cultural grounding with a strong sense of identity and capability. Global perspective with confident engagement with the world as equals. Institutional sustainability is being built. Policy frameworks designed to maintain self-reliance. Economic structures with built-in safeguards against redependence. Cultural preservation with mechanisms to maintain revolutionary values. Leadership pipeline with a new generation of leaders committed to this path. Regional integration is occurring based on new principles. Economic blocs with African nations collaborating as equal partners. Knowledge networks sharing innovation and best practices. Cultural exchanges celebrating diversity while building unity. Political coordination with common positions at international forums. If the Burkina Faso model spreads successfully, global transformation will occur. Development paradigms will be completely rethought regarding how nations develop. International relations will have a more equitable global power structure. Economic systems based on mutual benefit instead of extraction. Cultural renaissance with respect for all civilizations and knowledge systems. Ibrahim Traoré and the Burkina Faso Revolution teach us universal principles that can be applied everywhere. The power of belief. Transformation begins in the mind. When people believe in their capabilities, those capabilities expand. This is true for individuals, communities, and nations. The importance of self-reliance. True power comes from developing your own capabilities instead of depending on others. This does not mean isolation, but engaging from a position of strength. The value of cultural grounding. Innovation builds best on a cultural foundation. Instead of abandoning traditions, successful societies integrate traditional wisdom with modern techniques. The necessity of courage. Change requires courage. The courage to challenge existing systems. The courage to try new approaches. The courage to believe in possibilities that others dismiss. Observing Burkina Faso transform raises the question, what revolution is possible in your own life, your own community? At the individual level, what dependencies can you shed? What capabilities can you develop? How can you contribute instead of just consume from your community? At the community level, what local problems can be solved with local resources? What traditional knowledge is being undervalued? How can community members support each other to thrive? At the national level, what false limitations has your country accepted? What resources are being exported raw that could be processed locally? How can citizens take more responsibility for national development? The revolutionary mindset that Ibrahim Traoré has demonstrated requires no violence, only a clear vision of what is possible, a commitment to practical action, a belief in human capabilities, a willingness to challenge assumptions, persistence in the face of skepticism. Burkina Faso has proven that transformation is possible. The question is, who will be next? Which community, which nation, which individual will embrace the revolutionary mindset and create their own transformation? In a world where we are taught to accept limitations, Burkina Faso reminds us that the only true limitations are those we accept in our own minds. In a world where we are taught that some nations are born to lead and others to follow, Ibrahim Traoré demonstrates that every people is capable of leading its own path. In a world where we are taught that development means copying others' models, Burkina Faso shows that true development means discovering one's own unique potential. In a world where we are taught that success is measured by material wealth, the Burkina Faso Revolution reminds us that true success is measured by dignity, self-determination, and the ability to shape one's own destiny. This is not just a story about a small nation in West Africa. This is a story about the human capacity to overcome imposed limitations, to forge new paths, to prove that another world is possible. This is a story about the power of a simple but revolutionary idea. We do not need anyone's permission to become what we are capable of becoming. The colonial matrix has operated for decades by convincing people they had no choice. Ibrahim Traoré and the people of Burkina Faso have proven that we always have a choice. The choice to believe in our capabilities. The choice to act on that belief. The choice to forge our own path instead of following the one laid out for us by others. The revolution is waiting. Not a revolution of violence, but a revolution of consciousness. A revolution in how we think about ourselves, about our capabilities, about the future we can create. Ibrahim Traoré has started this revolution in Burkina Faso. But the true revolution will only be complete when each of us decides to join. The question is not whether change can happen. Burkina Faso has answered that question. The question is, are you ready to be part of the answer? Are you ready to challenge the limitations you have accepted? Are you ready to believe in your capabilities and act on that belief? The old system is crashing. The fundamental assumptions upon which it relies are being proven wrong. A new system is emerging, built on different principles: self-reliance instead of dependence, cooperation instead of domination, respect instead of exploitation, hope instead of fear. The revolution has begun. The only question left is, are you ready to join?